Howdy brewers, this is my White IPA made with raw wheat this time. Remember, because I screwed up my grain order. If you get the choice between raw wheat and malted wheat, pay the extra, get the malted wheat. I just got confused by the labelling, my fault. Should have asked the brew shop. Anyway, one of my favourite beer styles of White IPA. It's a combination between a Belgian wit and an IPA. So I've used the traditional coriander. It's ground coriander, not coriander leaf. And instead of orange peel, I used Tangelo peel, which is a hybrid fruit between a tangerine and a grapefruit. The other thing I did use was I used some hops, late hops and dry hops with Palisade, I think, and Crosby Experimental No. 4. It's very, you can smell the coriander on the nose, and also you get a bit of that dough flavour that you get from the wheat malt. It's a stronger with, it is stronger with the raw wheat. So I used it, I think at 40% of this grain bill was wheat, raw wheat. Give it a taste. Oh. Wow. That is just, it's so smooth, and the bitterness, I think it was about 50 IBUs. I'll put the recipe up at the end. About 50 IBUs, but it hits you straight up and it's gone, and you're left with that beautiful rind flavour, not the pith, no sort of that astringency, the pith from a traditional citrus fruit. And the coriander, while it's big on the nose, it's not that much on the palate, which is a surprise. But the body on it is just perfect. It's not too thin, definitely not too thick. Despite the haze, that's the proteins from the raw wheat, and I imagine the oils from the Tangelo rind and the dry hopping. But the raw wheat, I imagine, contributes a lot to that. So if you're wondering how I made this beer, here's the brew day. Cheers.
Happy brew day, everyone. This morning I'll be doing a White IPA. Now, if you're wondering why I've got a brew in a bag or a Hessian bag inside the grain father when they've got a screen at the bottom, it's because I screwed up my grain order and I bought raw wheat instead. Yeah, mistake on my part. And so the wheat grain is raw, and it's had to be crushed really fine while I do this cereal mash, and it's almost like flour. So I want the grain to the bag to catch all those grains while I do the three-step mash. But first step first, add my brewing salts, which is 1 heaped teaspoon, or about 7.5 grams of gypsum. That's all I'm putting in today. So with the wheat malt that I'll stir in a minute, I'll also be adding 50 grams of rice hulls, rinsed, and I'm also adding about a cup of, maybe a bit more than a cup of the other grains I'll be brewing with today, which are just an ale and a crystal malt. I'm going to put the rice hulls in first. I just think that they'll mix through better. I've never used them before, but I'm hoping they do the trick for what will be probably a really gummy beer because of the raw wheat. So that's how fine it is. and you can see that those small bits would go through the grain father screen at the bottom if you're familiar with the size of the holes, even with the rice holes. And this is just the jar of the grains I'm brewing with. That's just a sort of, I don't know, I've read online that you should mix a bit of it through, so I will. The step mashing I'm doing today is a beta glucanase rest at 40 degrees for 20 minutes, and then I'll do a gelatinizer or a protein rest, gelatinization rest at 57, and then I'll bring it up to 67 for a normal saccharification rest, and that's when I'll mix in my other grains, which, as I said, were ale malt and bitter crystal. You can see it's cloudy. Got to keep an eye on the flow to make sure. Oh, can you see that it's cloudy? I've just got to keep an eye on the flow rate. Make sure if I have to throw some more rice hulls in. Alright, I'll keep an eye on this for 20 minutes or so and then ramp up the temperature. Okay, so the beta glucanase rest, 20 minutes at 40 degrees is done, and now I've bumped up the temperature and it's going to do a protein gelatinization rest at 56, 57 degrees for another 20 minutes. I might leave it go for half an hour. So at the moment the flow rate's not too bad. Hopefully it stays that way. Okay, so we've done our 30 minutes at 56, 57 degrees, and so now we're going to mash in with the rest of the grains. Find out if I've got enough room at the bottom, otherwise I'll have to add some more water. I've got to be careful with this mash paddle not to rip the bag. I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and add some more water. We'll see how it looks. Yeah, a lot of dough balls. Oh no! It's dragging it down to the bottom of the plate. Okay. Might have to see if bigger bags exist. So I don't expect this wort to run clear, even though I'm recirculating, because of the amount of protein that exists in the raw wheat. So that'll be okay, and it's also a white IPA, so it is going to be hazy anyway. Alright, so just to make sure I don't go over my volumes, I'm going to just add 1 litre of sparge water and see how that looks. Well, that's not looking too bad now. Yeah, it's not too bad. I think I will leave it. And I'm going to mash for 75 minutes today because the raw wheat, the efficiency might not be great with it. So an extra 15 minutes might get me a little bit more sugar. Otherwise I'll have to bump it up with dry malt extract.
This is going to be interesting how I get this out. pH 5.4, 75-minute mash. Well, I was wrong. The grainfather did manage to recirculate the beer clear despite the high protein in the raw wheat. Now, the mash has been going for 75 minutes, but because of the raw wheat, there'll be a lot of starches. So I want to make sure I've got full conversion. When it disappears like that, means there's no starches left. Brilliant. Happy with that. So now I can start sparging. One thing I forgot to do was my mash out. So I put the top plate on just to see if I could manage it. Adjusted the flow rate, so that much is coming out. And then bumping up the temperature to 77 degrees for mash out. And then I'll sparge on top of the top plate. So the bag is still in there and it's draped over the center pipe, the malt return pipe, whatever it's called, I can't remember. And yeah, so I'll mash it for 10-15 minutes and then I'll start sparging. So we can see that the wort has clarified, but if you can see, the level is above the malt return pipe in the middle, this part. That means I'm probably in for a slow sparge. But when I had, 40% raw wheat malt, even though I use rice husks, I don't think that's too bad. Alright, first wort hops, 20 grams of Warrior. I've got the volume spot on. I just need to measure the pre-boil gravity. We're looking for 1054. So I only managed 1050. So I'll put that down to the raw wheat. If I've had it mashed longer, who knows, but I think 75 minutes is long enough. So I'm just going to add, maybe 250 grams of light dry malt. That should be enough. Alright, we're coming up to 15 minutes left in the boil. Time to throw in clarifying agent, which is Brew or Polyclar. And some yeast nutrient. And I'm going to throw in the coriander, tangelo peel, and the 5-minute or the flavour addition hops in a few minutes. Just throwing in the 5-minute hop addition. And this is the tangelo rind. Want that in to go through the mix. Be careful when you're doing any sort of citrus rind that you don't get any the white pith in solution, because it gives it a really firm bitterness that's not pleasant. And some ground coriander, 25 grams. And it's 25 grams of tangelo peel too. And flame out addition. Turn it off the heat.
I'm going to let that rest for 20 minutes, or steep for 20 minutes. Okay, so the steeping or whirlpool's finished. Now I've got the beer or wort running through my counterflow plate chiller and into my fermenter. So I'll be able to pitch my Mangrove Jack's Belgian wheat yeast into this White IPA, and that'll be the end of it. Actually, no, I'll do some dry hopping with some more Tangelo rind and the Palisade and whatever the other hops are. They're experimental number 4. So I don't know if they made a name for them yet. Anyway, that's the hops I'll dry hop with. The dry hop also involves more Tangelo peel. Now, I don't like to use vodka or any alcohol to sterilise the fruit rind. So there's nothing wrong with Star San to use that to sanitise. And to be honest, I don't even really know if it's worth it, because it's highly acidic, and as soon as you start to get the break open the rind and the oils come out and the acids come out, I really struggle to think that there'd be any bugs on there that would stay alive. Not to mention that the beer has already fermented, so most, if not all, of the fermentable sugars are actually they're already consumed into alcohol, so it's going to be submerged in a high alcohol environment compared to where they're living at the moment on the skin. So anyway, just do it for safekeeping. I've sanitised the zester, and so I'll just get 30 grams of Tangelo rind from all this, being sure not to get any of the white in there, because it adds a bitterness that is not pleasant. And then I'll put the hops in as well. Okay, see you in a minute. And here I've got 30 grams of Tangelo peel or rind, 25 grams of Palisade hops, and 25 grams of Crosby experimental variety number 4, but it's advertised that it gives a nice orangey flavours, so that should complement the Tangelo rind. Alright, so these are clean chucks. I'm just going to tie them up and then toss them in the brew. Okay, here's the Tangelo rind and the hops going in, and they'll be in there. Hopefully they stay in the bag and it doesn't unravel itself. I've tied a knot in it, but you never know what goes on inside a fermenter until you open it up. And yeah, that'll go in there, I think, for 4 or 5 days.